Hello everyone and welcome to another Rome Total War month battle replay. Shh-boogaloo. And this time it's another 5-unit FFA. This was a rematch that me, the host, the other guy, and another person joined us in. And yeah, so this was another go at this rather pretty interesting rule set. So it's just a standard free-for-all, but only 5 units were allowed per army. So this time I chose for Greek cities, and basically, yeah, I basically went somewhat cheesy with 3 units of Spartan hoplites, but then backing them up I have a unit of Cretan archers, and then also I have my standard issue armoured general's bodyguard. So I thought, yeah, that's going to be a good build. But there are 3 other factions vying for control of this lovely flat area of grass where you could build a Minecraft house. And on one side we have the Egyptians, who have just gone for 5 units of chariot archers. Yep. Then we have the Julii, who have something when we can get close enough to see. They've brought themselves 2 units of urban cohorts, and then backing them up is a general's armoured bodyguard and 2 units of Praetorian cavalry, so the general overpowered Roman thing. Yeah, there's a bit of a theme going on here. If you're going to bring 5 units, bring something overpowered. And then we have our last player, the host, who is playing as Armenia, who decided that after basically Armenia won the last battle, that he would go as Armenia. And while you can only see 1 unit of cataphracts, trust me, he has more, and they're all somehow invisible in this lovely big plain. Because I guess this grass is long enough to render a horse invisible. But that's to build up, so basically, well, it was anyone's game really. It's a free-for-all, isn't it? However, who goes for who and who does what and who's going to win? Because basically we have 2 excessively cheesy armies and then 2 semi-cheesy armies. Me with my Spartans and the enemy with their Praetorians, and then, you know, you just got... But as it did start out, the Egyptian chariots decided to go directly for the Julii because, well, they could just maneuver around and cause loads of chaos. I also decided that the Julii would be would be the easiest and most suitable target for me. That'd be where I'd probably 1 get the most interesting battle, and 2 would probably get the most kills. And the Armenians were just snooping around, basically a few miles away. They had deployed pretty far away from his front lines. However, I was wary of the enemy generals, so well, the Egyptians more likely. So I decided to peel my general onto the flanks, just in case the chariots decided to come near. At this point, I hadn't really bothered to zoom over, so I was just basically... I wasn't sure if they were melee chariots or if they were archer chariots, but obviously I should have probably assumed they were archer chariots, since that's what the Egyptians tend to specialise in, and they're basically the best Egyptian unit in the world, because these things are practically unstoppable. And the Julii, knowing this, decided just to go into a full head-on charge just to clip their wings as fast as possible. So it's spreading this Praetorian cavalry out, or they're sort of going in a lump. He's also running his urban cohorts in there, which isn't really going to get the best result in the world. All that's really going to happen is they're going to get exhausted and they're probably going to get killed by the arrows, but oh well, more power to you for trying. But meanwhile, the Praetorians, they decided to catch up with 1 of the chariot units and were just starting to take him out, but the chariots were still continuing to move. I'm guessing they were just left on permanent skirmish formation, but they were also probably being, well, micromanaged quite effectively. But at this point, 1 of the units had pretty much met its maker and had been swamped by the enemy Praetorian cavalry. So that unit is gone. The other one is coming in to aid it, though. These units are scythed, by the way, so they are supposed to hold up somewhat in a melee fight, but unfortunately they're not going to. Meanwhile, way over there, the Armenians were beginning to move against me. I was aware that the Armenians were heading in my direction, so I redeployed my Spartans to try and ward the cataphracts off. I was beginning to create a formation where I could just dig in defensively. I mean, obviously, it's not really the way to go free for all. You are supposed to be aggressive, but if you have a lot of Armenian cataphracts staring you down, you're not just going to walk up to them. You are going to get your spears down and make sure that they are not going to come anywhere near you. Or at least you would if your units could be bothered putting themselves into phalanx formation, but would just stand around staring at you instead. But the more interesting thing was actually going on over here for the first half of the battle. Yet most of the Julii were beginning to rout at this point. The Praetorian cavalry had just been absolutely wiped out by the chariots. But the chariots at the same time had been wiped out by the Praetorian cavalry, so it was really one of those tie battles with no winner, but then again, actually the winner was the Egyptians. Still had 4 units left, even though 1 of them had been practically reduced to nothing. but he still had enough to cause serious harm to me and the Armenian. But for some reason, whenever I start recording a video, I just suddenly get a really bad contagious case of the yawns. It's really rude. Because I'm not tired and I'm loving this. Anyway, the Julii are just doing what they can to try and slow down the enemy. The Armenian decided I wasn't really worth going for at the minute, so he thought he'd have better luck facing down the chariots. Not sure if he was just watching what the Julii were doing and thought, yeah, I could just throw my cavalry at the chariots and maybe finish them off. However, these are cataphracts, and given how much armor they're wearing, I think they're a little slower, but then again, they are quite easily catching up, so I'm probably wrong. However, the chariots are trying to make their getaway. But that was the cataphracts tied up for a while. Still left me with nothing to do, but I was just going to keep moving forward until we eventually hit a corner or something, and then I could do something in this battle. So I just kept my troops going forward and forward and forward. I'm actually going to probably speed this battle up a little bit, because for now I'm just sat here doing nothing. But the Armenian had realised that the Egyptians were a little bit too slippery and decided that it might be worthwhile going for something else. While he wasn't really losing units to the chariots, he was beginning to lose vigour. As you can see, his units are already warmed up, and it probably won't be long for him to descend into being winded, then exhausted, and so on and so forth. Speaking of winded, the urban cohorts weren't doing so well. They were beginning to run out of stamina because, well, they'd just been running around the battlefield all the time, haven't really got into a proper engagement yet. So that wasn't really doing them much good. If they engaged me, they probably weren't going to win because, well, they're tired out already, so I could just move in and already have an advantage over the enemy. But I'll just have to do what I can with them. Meanwhile, some of the Egyptians had wandered off, but I believe these ones were routing, but they've just come back into a battle. But right now, they were just having a lot of fun just throwing the Egyptians around. I'm just going to speed this one up a little bit. Now, the enemy had come into range of my Cretan archers, so I started loosing off a few volleys. Didn't bother with fire arrows because I knew that would have no effect at all. However, cleverly and in response to that, the enemy just decided to put up a testudo formation in order to put an end to my arrows, which would mean I would have to come forward and attack. But I had noticed that the Armenian was on his way back, so I was more interested in manoeuvring my Spartans around to stop the Armenian from doing anything. And I wasn't sure if the Armenian was eyeing up those lovely tight testudo formations to just blow up with his cavalry, or was still looking for a way to attack me. So I was once more just having to go back on a defensive. But everyone was now descending on the centre of the map. The Egyptians were on their way back. The Armenians right dead centre. I'm just sat around pinning things and just attacking things with my archers, just waiting for that opportunity to move my Spartans and strike. Because I knew my Spartans were, even if they are a fancy unit, even with their sword, they were still a pretty good infantry unit, mainly because of their impressively high morale stat, which I could try and take the best advantage of. But for now, it was just me trying to shoot whatever I could. However, as good as Cretan archers are, I am fighting very, very well armoured targets, which meant my archers weren't really going to get a lot of stuff done. Any kills we did get were going to be at the minimum. But I did manage to take one out at least. But he had spotted a weakness in my formation. He was going to move in, take advantage of that instantly. Because obviously, if I was at 5 units, I can't really do the noob circle or anything. So he went for my general's bodyguard, which I'd sort of offered up as a sacrificial unit to try and distract the Armenians, just to buy enough time for me to move my Spartans in. However, as you can see, as good as my plan was in theory, I didn't execute it right at all. But since they were facing the wrong way, good excuse for archers. But I was now having to think in two minds. I had the Julii on one side of me, I had the Armenians on the other side of me. Wasn't quite being teamed up on, but basically I sat around in battle for doing nothing. I was going to get noticed sooner or later. I wasn't hiding. It just takes my guys a while to get around. But my archers were done for. The Armenians had spotted the way in, taken out my Cretan archers, which is actually one of the fastest ways to annoy me on Total War, when a cavalry unit just wipes out all my archers in one go. That, and when I'm playing Age of Empires, if someone kills my villagers, I get extraordinarily pissed off. By the way, my general died.
His men will lose heart.
I hadn't done a very good job of keeping an eye on where my general was, and the Egyptian chariots had eaten him for, well, they'd already eaten breakfast, so I'd assume this was their lunch at this point. But now the Julii decided to have enough. They were going to move in and attack. raining pillars down on my Crucian archers, who had managed to survive a bout with the Armenians somehow, but were obviously severely depleted. I was trying to keep I was just trying to use 1 unit per enemy faction at this point. 1 to keep the Julii away, 1 to deal with the Armenians, and 1 to ward off the Egyptians. So I was now basically in the middle of a great big soggy biscuit at this point. So I was trying to just move things around, keep the enemy away from, well, not keep the enemy away, but every enemy was basically retreating away from me. Because obviously going toe-to-toe with a Spartan hoplite is still a very, very bad idea. But the Armenian had been watching what I was doing very, very closely, and he waited for me to engage 1 unit. I managed to just engage these guys and was beginning to win, and the army is just coming right from behind. And that actually managed to just push my guys over the edge and break through. So like I said, that legendary morale of Spartan hoplites actually didn't play in my favour at all. Because, well, when you get crushed by about 5 units of cataphracts, your morale just doesn't count for shit, bro. And those Armenians were just going to run around and just basically be the nuclear bomb of a scenario. As you can see, they were just running around, then another general died.
And now his men fear us. It is time to press the attack.
I think every general died in this battle, actually. But now that the Armenians had wandered off to deal with the Egyptians, I moved in what was left of my Spartans to just attack the Julii. Obviously, one of mine got surrounded, but I just brought in my other ones to surround him, and we just basically made a triple-decker sandwich. I was thinking that I could probably still win this engagement anyway. While there were urban cohorts, they were now absolutely exhausted, and their morale was already just dropping so many levels. My guys, the ones which hadn't engaged yet, still had enough morale to carry them forth. Cretan archers were, well, they were just a tempting target for the cataphracts. Unfortunately, the cataphracts decided not to go for them and just moved in.
The enemy's hearts are...
And then another general dies.
Slain, and now his men fear us. It is time to press the attack.
I think it's only the Egyptian general who was left in this game at this point. But yeah, I just got squashed at the end of the day. I was hoping that my Cretan archers would have been a tempting target, but it looks like this enemy was smart enough not to take on my bribes and just went for the main core of my army. And while I did temporarily break up my Spartans, they weren't quite broken just yet, so they did actually keep on going. And I do remember at some point in this battle, I think it was about now, the Egyptian player actually did lag out and became an AI player. Don't think it shows up on the replay, but at this point the Egyptian was playing considerably less smarter than he was earlier, and he was just basically skirmishing and just basically hovering would be the best word. But yeah, he'd basically become AI controlled, and it had just become down to me and the Armenian. The Julii had been wiped out. My Cretan archers had just been chased across the field and taken out. So it's just all these Armenians left, and then me, which did not really look like a good situation to be in. Because it wasn't. Just me against a load of cataphracts, the most overpowered cavalry in the game, next to Praetorian cohort. Well, yeah, Praetorian cavalry, not cohorts. But I just still had some sort of faith left in my Spartan hoplites. Knew if I just kept my spears facing forward and then just tried to counter whatever direction the enemy would choose, I should be able to win. I just put the Egyptians out of my mind, because at this point they were an AI army, so they were just floating around looking for things to do. But I was just decided to keep moving forward, and just keep looking for a way in. However, here I'd made a mistake. I'd made a very big gap in my army because I had some of my guys moving towards the Egyptians. Shouldn't have done that. That gave the enemy an opportunity to move in. Luckily they didn't take me up on it, but they were splitting their cataphracts up, ready to just go for that final devastating flank charge. But I was gonna just keep vigilant, keep my men moving around. And, well, that was really about it. It just really became a big game of cat and mouse at the end of the battle. I was chasing the enemy around with my Spartans, but then, as you can see, it all went wrong eventually. My units got too far separated, and that was just it for my army. And, well, really, I just decided to bring my last Spartans in, just as a last-ditch effort to try and save the battle, but nothing really came out of it. Only killed a very, very small amount of cataphracts. The majority of his army was still alive. Just could not do a thing. My guys were routing. This was my last non-routing unit left in the entire battle. As you can see, everything, well, actually, I had another, they're routing. Everything else had just gone wrong for him, but the enemy was just going to keep himself as far away from my Spartans as possible until he had the opportunity to just basically move in, swamp them, and win. Because that's what happens when you have enough cataphracts. Even an anti-cavalry unit won't scare you. You could just swamp anything you wanted. And that was me wiped out of battle. I placed a very solid 3rd place. But it was still a very interesting battle formation. Quite annoying that basically the winner had basically, well, cheese spammed.
Your army is running. They almost deserve to be slaughtered.
But I think really, if everyone was to bring a balanced army or something, and the battle actually ended here, there is no stats because the host actually lagged out at this point, or at least quit, because he couldn't be bothered taking on the cataphract, well, the chariots. But yeah, I think this is actually a really fun idea, just doing a 5-unit FFA. I think it was just degraded a little bit when someone just brings Armenia and just basically spams cataphracts for. As much as I like cataphracts, I really don't like it when they are spammed out really hardcore. I just find it just degrades the battle overall. But overall, it was still a pretty interesting battle. I mean, I would say basically me and the Julia player probably had the most interesting armies, me and my Spartans, and him with his cohorts and cavalry. But at the end of the day, that's my final word. See you later, folks.